I'm here with the Rider fan. We just finished beating Hamilton. What do you have to think about the game?
Well, here's what I thought. It wasn't looking good going in. Masoli's on a rolly. But I don't give a damn. Holy moly. You want to come up on here and see what we be? Riders, the 13th man on D. Everybody walking out, they rocking out like whatever, man. I'm saying, we're better, man. You ain't coming in here. Hamilton win here in years. We're loud as hell because we're loud on all these beers. We don't give a damn if it's Thursday. We're working on the shit because we're drinking when we're thirsty. They're trying to hold us out, but we're holding them down and say it's sin. Coming back saying that we needed this win.
There you have it, straight from the 13th man.
Welcome to the Rider Outsiders, where we talk CFL football and your Saskatchewan Roughriders. I'm Mitch Wiles with Dylan Robson.
Great to be here. Looking forward to talking about some football. I enjoyed the week.
And genius of Canadian football, Bryce Wiles.
Hi, how you guys doing? Glad to be back.
And a big thanks to Alan Dunning for that post-game wrap. Today we're talking Riders versus Tiger Cats and a behind-the-scenes interview with Kris Moen. He drove the injury cart during Rider games for the last 20 years. That's a fun interview.
You know what? It was fun. Kris was great to talk to, and he had a lot of stories. He had a good passion for the football, and he seems to know, his way around the positions and talking about what's going on. So looking forward to hearing that again. Let's get started with some quick hits.
First up, Matt Nichols led Winnipeg over BC 41-19. BC falls to 1 win, 2 losses. Is it time for the Lions to sit Jonathan Jennings for Travis Lulay? What do you think, Dylan?
If Travis Lulay's 100%, then start him. That's it.
Bryce?
You know what? This is not a quarterback issue. This is a defensive issue. When you give up 41 points, it's not a quarterback issue. It's a defensive issue, and something needs to change there.
Agreed. Next up, Toronto beats Edmonton 20-17, but not without some controversy. A seam between two types of turf in the end zone was blamed for an Edmonton receiver to lose his footing, causing a big Toronto interception. Should the league force Toronto to have a uniform playing surface, or is this just part of home field advantage? Dylan?
I think there should be regulations for each team. If you have a turf, there's got to be certain rules with that. Yes, I think. Do you hear me?
I got you loud and clear.
Can you hear me?
100%.
Okay. Good. I think that the league should have regulation and rules for the turf. If you have turf, this is the rules it needs to meet. If you have grass, which nobody does, these are the rules it's got to meet.
Bryce?
Well, I think that the turf is the same for both teams. So there's no excuses here. You got to make your playbook. You got to prepare for the turf that you're playing at and change your playbook. And we even saw some pretty unique plays, Edmonton, when they tried that onside field goal, and it was successful.
Yeah, they managed to get that ball. And you're right about, so you got to change your playbook. I remember there's a couple fields, I'm not sure if they exist anymore, that have the end zones that had like the corners of the end zones cut in, like it wasn't a full 20-yard end zone. Is that Montreal?
Yes, yeah.
Right, I remember that.
Does that Montreal that still
too,
exists?
in their Olympic-style stadium.
That's right, because they got the big track running around, so it sometimes changes the shape of the end zone. Next up, Ottawa versus Montreal was the week's live mic game, and Ottawa quarterback Trevor Harris really showed off his command of the field. Tuesday, hurry, set, hut! Live mic games. Do you love them or do you hate them?
Yes. The live mic is kind of fun. It's cool. If it brings in new viewers or creates a little bit of interest, some cool highlights, then yeah, I'm all for it. Maybe not throughout the entire game. Throw to it every few plays or something like that.
Yeah, I honestly thought that the sound guys at TSN just left the mic on because I'm used to them kind of dipping in and out. But it was on for the entire game, and it got a little bit distracting, I think. I kind of like the commentary, too. The guys that were kind of calling the game kind of just sat back for a lot of it. Maybe they just wanted to take a breather.
Yeah, they still get paid. Hamilton's pass interference challenge at the end of the Rider game could have really changed the outcome of the match. Guys, taking a second look at that in super slow-mo, should have it been pass interference? Or did the refs get it right?
Well, super slow-mo, there's going to be opinions out there. I'm just going to say, didn't need a call. Too many penalties ruins the game.
Yeah, I think you got to let him hand fight. You got to let him play physical football, and I like no call.
I think it was close. Definitely holding my breath. He had the hand touch the jersey, but he didn't grab it. So I think the refs did get it right, but it could have gone either way. All right, that's it for quick hits. And that means it's time to talk about Riders versus Hamilton, an 18-13 win, a close defensive matchup. Where do you guys want to start off?
Well, I'll start off with Mazzoli there, and he did his 9th consecutive game with over 300 yards, and looks like a star quarterback in the CFL.
He looks like a star quarterback, but Rider defense held him to no touchdowns. It was just field goals all game. What'd you think of that defense, Dylan?
Defense for the Riders looked great. You know what? And with the defense, I can't help but mention Deron Carter. Deron Carter, I didn't see any major mistakes, anything that would have cost us major yards. The quarterback, Mazzoli, did a lot of scrambling, got some big run plays. That could have been Deron. You know, the whole defense sort of just having him get that sneak in. And you know what? Like I said, if there's a win, you can't complain about the win. And I'm happy with it. Happy with the D. D looked great.
D looked great. And I gave Chris Jones a hard time last week for playing Carter against the top receiver that we're up against. But this week, Carter played the wide side of the field. He didn't have to cover Brandon Banks. I think they moved Ed Gainey over to the other corner. And even though we were complaining about this idea of moving players around, it really worked for the Riders. We had a defensive end play safety and got an interception. It was quite the outing for the defense. But and on top of that, the special teams played great too. But the one side of the football that did not do very well is that offense. What do you guys think of the QBing during that game?
You know what? Brandon Bridge, I saw the press conference before the game. He looked a little bit deflated. And you know what? I don't want to read too much into that, because when I saw Brandon Bridge play, you know, there was a lot of scrambling. There was a lot of good passes where he put up the ball for the chance of receivers to get it, which makes for exciting football when they do get it. Not to mention that second quarter scramble that Brandon Bridge did, where he just lunges for the end zone at like the 2 or 3 yard line and loses the ball just, you know, as he's scoring it. And it's a shame that he didn't get the touchdown, but I mean, he wanted that touchdown so bad. And that's the kind of football that makes it fun to be in the stands. So I loved the effort out of Bridge.
Yeah, I like the effort out of Bridge too, and I think he might have even been taking your advice from last week, where at the end of the game there, he did what you said he wasn't doing. He did the pump fake and go, throws it up to Joshua Stanford, and makes that huge catch, and then the next play, Thigpen breaks the big run for the game-winning touchdown there.
What a huge play by Stanford, the Canadian, coming up with the big catch. Probably one of the unlikely picks for the game-changing play.
Yeah, no kidding. It's funny because I think it was just a play before that, might have been a QB scramble or something like that, where there was a run. And I said Stanford, he wasn't blocking. He was the receiver, but he wasn't blocking for the running play very well. And I remember saying, "Come on," you know. And then the very next play, he did that. And my complaint seemed like you know, such a waste of breath after seeing that play that he made.
So I watched the game on TSN, but then I listened to it back on CKRM, Rod and Luke there, and Luke was going on Stanford missing that block. And
oh, really?
Oh, yeah, he missed that block, and that would have been a big play there. Stanford really blew it there, right? And then the next play comes up with a huge catch, and he goes, he makes amends, you know, he makes the big comeback. And apparently, I didn't quite catch it, but Luke Mullender, he also caught that Stanford made the big final block to spring Thigpen there for the touchdown run. So
I didn't see the last block from Stanford, but it's funny that he mentioned the same two things that I mentioned. Yeah, good point. And again, Watford came in. I didn't like the QB carousel thing. Didn't like it. It worked. So, you know, what am I going to do? I don't think people say that it doesn't help the quarterback's confidence. This is how Chris Jones sees it, though. He's not there. His job is not to make for a confident quarterback. His job is to get the win and if put the right people in. And if the quarterback plays and shows results, then he's going to keep him in. If pulling the quarterback hurts his confidence, that's on the QB. The coach can't necessarily worry about everybody's confidence levels, if you know what I'm saying. So I think that he did it. The QB carousel, we won the game, and it worked. So
yeah, I think there might be some validity to the QB carousel, because maybe these quarterbacks are a little bit unexperienced, and maybe they're using the time between sharing series to kind of prep their quarterbacks for the next series so they kind of don't get overwhelmed. And it seemed to work for this game for the win, but the Riders still need to put up more touchdowns in the CFL. CFL is a high-scoring league, and I think the defense really won the game for the Riders this week.
That's an interesting point, that if they are sitting on the sidelines prepping, knowing that they're going to be back in another series, but I do think Jones has them on that short leash. We have a little bit of tape here from Bridge making a play, but the touchdown gets called back when he fumbles. Let's have a listen. Unfortunately, Bridge does one good play, then he seems to take a step back. Is that really one of the reasons why Bridge isn't a bona fide starter in this league? Is that he can make a play, but then he throws a dumb pick or he fumbles the ball?
Yeah, well, consistency is needed in a quarterback. So, yeah, that could be a reason. If he's lacking consistency there, consistency of results means you're going to stay in the game and score touchdowns and all that. But like I said, loved the effort, and eventually that effort is going to win games. So, more effort like that.
Yeah, I think he did show a lot of heart when he leaped over the defender, putting his body on the line and taking a big hit just to score the touchdown, and just to be just like a half second away from scoring the touchdown and having it be a fumble. Shows amazing heart from Brandon Bridge, and I think he's going to be a great quarterback.
And quite the vertical. He was way up there. And talk about athleticism. Charleston Hughes with they call it a fumble recovery, but pretty much it was an interception and a pick six. And
that counts as a sack, an interception, and a touchdown. I mean, that's the holy trinity of the defensive line play, right? I mean, that's what you're there for.
How was experiencing that play from the stands there, Dylan?
Oh, it's just a roller coaster of emotions, because the sack, you see like, oh man, he's going to sack him. Then you see the ball go flying, and you're like, when the ball pops out like that and you're at the game, you just start screaming things like, get the ball. So, and then he does. And then so you just start screaming things like, run, So, and
just in case awesome. He forgot
Love
to
plays
run.
Like that. Exactly. You got to make sure.
It looked like he was
follow the sound.
running out of gas there at the end, but he had a blocker coming with him, sort of shielding anyone from coming within 5 yards of him. Well, I watched that back play 4 or 5 times. Beautiful play. And holy smokes, I think it was Toby Antigua again. He blitzed from the halfback position on that play and just creamed Mazzoli. Just creamed him. Mazzoli turns around looking for the ball, and boom! I thought that was going to be Manziel.
You know what? I missed that live. But I do remember Mazzoli taking a hit now that you mentioned. So maybe I did. Yeah, that might have been that same play. I remember him getting leveled at one point and thinking the same thing. Manziel's coming in, but he got up. So
he's tough. Definitely tough. You guys got anything else for the Rider game? It's obviously a huge win with the Riders going into the bye week. We didn't want to sit on 1 win, 2 losses going into the bye. Yeah,
I think I'm happy. It's like a fresh start. 2-2. Going to the bye week, come out strong. Boom.
We have a rematch against Hamilton, so that's going to be all about coaching, I think, really, to figure out what you want to bring to the game. Is that Hamilton had the Riders on the run a little bit there in the first quarter with all those running plays. It looked like we weren't quite prepared to stop that.
You talked earlier about Jones moving players around. So if he plays Hamilton, we beat them. If he goes into the next game and we've moved players around again and those players perform, it's very hard to scout for Hamilton. And, I even heard the defensive coordinator of Hamilton talking about that before the game. They were asking him about how to prepare for the Riders, and he said, you have to look at the individual players. Which individual players have what talents, and so they're even recognizing that they're trying to scout the players as opposed to the whole defensive scheme and positions and things like that.
It's going to be tough. Next up, we have an interview. Dylan Robson, what do we need to know about Kris Moen?
Kris Moen, he's about my age. He started driving the injury cart for the Roughriders, pretty much, I think he said right out of high school. And, what a sweet gig to get. It's a cool gig. He gets to watch the games. He gets to be there for big moments. And, obviously get to know the players and different people on the staff and with the Riders. So he seemed like he had the time of his life working there. And and he's got great stories. So check out the interview.
Here I am, Dylan Robson, here with an exclusive interview with Kris Moen, former injury cart driver with the F Troop and the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Kris, great to have you on the show.
Great to be here. Looking forward to it.
So, what were the years that you volunteered as the injury cart driver for the Riders?
Yeah, I was down there with a group called F Troop for 20 years. It started off with in high school, actually, a work experience class in grade 10. I got on with the marketing department with the Riders, and Hugh McKay started, and I got on with him and just blended in with the F Troop crew. And yeah, it's been flashed by in 20 years.
What year was that when it seemed to be like the year of the broken legs? Was that 2008? Was that 2010? It was one of those years, I think.
Yeah, I believe it was 8. 10 was the year. 10 was a good year. Started off with that Montreal game that went to double overtime. We had a few good highlights that I remember that year, but the year with all the broken legs was a tough one to take. It seemed like we were out there quite a bit, and just seeing how bad some of them were, and players sitting there not realizing what's going on and trying to kick in dislocations when there actually breaks, and just anything. They're all panicking, trying to get back on the field. So it was pretty intense to witness, that's for sure.
Yeah, that doesn't sound very pleasant, trying to fix a broken leg that you think is dislocated. Yeah, that's rough. Yeah, you definitely put some miles on the injury cart there in that season. I think it was like everybody from DJ Flick, Weston Dressler, didn't Fantuz go down as well? I mean, and there was other guys that weren't star receivers, and Durant actually went down that year. I think it was a broken rib or something. And
yeah, it was just everybody. It seemed every game there was somebody else that was going down, and it just impacted every game just more and more. It was hard to watch.
A moment ago, you mentioned the 2010, essentially the Grey Cup rematch after the horrific 13th man Grey Cup in 2009. The opening game for the CFL was July 1st, 2010 against Montreal. So essentially a chance for the Riders to welcome the newly crowned Grey Cup champions at Taylor Field and extract a little revenge. Do you remember watching that game? A game that in intensity, how do you balance what you got to do for your job and watching a game that's essentially a shootout?
Well, lucky for us, when we were with the cart, we were just fans for most of it until we had to go do it. Other guys on F Troop were always busy running around, but I got lucky early calling that gig. So the nice thing about that year was that the injury cart was actually in the corner where most of the scoring was, especially the big touchdown by S.J. Green was just right in front of us. So I don't know how to this day we got to sit so close to the field, but it was quite intense to watch. Later on that year was actually a big catch by Rob Bagg that ran over to us and jumped up into my arms, which was pretty memorable. That was all over TSN highlights and stuff, which was pretty fun experience as well. But yeah, it was a fun year.
Yeah, and I hope there's a lot of listeners out there who can remember that game, because for me that was, I would go on the record and say the greatest CFL regular season game I think I ever witnessed. I don't know how it could get any better. It had everything. The drama, setting up the rematch of the Grey Cup. We even had a repeat 13th man penalty called in the middle of the game as we were trying to mount the comeback. And it was just absolutely epic. And then to beat Montreal after that emotional Grey Cup game in 2009, that actually my wife and I were at that game for our honeymoon. The Grey Cup, that's where we went, and it was absolutely unforgettable, but not the ending that we were hoping for, obviously. When I think back about, as I was mentioning earlier, that 07 to 13 era, it actually seems like a different time than right now. Obviously, with the new stadium, it's a little different, but I remember the fans in that era just being wild. There would be times where the Riders would seemingly need a timeout, and fans would streak onto the field, get tackled by security just so the Riders could have an extra few minutes to do some play calls. Do you look back at that era and do you see it? It would be different now because you're in the stands now. But do you see that? Do you notice that difference in era, the difference in fandom between then and now?
Yeah, I do. I think it was just an era with the team I think it was just the age of the majority of the fans too. It was kind of, we were into that almost university feel. I remember one poor guy streaking, and he went to jump off the hot tub and slipped and knocked himself out in the hot tub, which was right next to us, which was funny. But I just see now, and yeah, I do get a different feel. I'm sitting with my family up in the stands, and it's fun, but it just seems like quite a bit more of a family environment right now. As the season goes on, I'm sure that'll change, and I'm not down by the Pill Country, so I'm sure it's a little wild down there, but it's just a different feel. But I think it's also the fans are getting a feel for the team and the identity of the team and trying to figure that out. Once we get that and we can have, a regime together for a few years and get that identity, I think it will get back to that loud and rowdy crowd.
A little while ago, you sent me a picture there of you holding the Grey Cup from the Grey Cup victory in 2013. Just describe that night for me. Your perspective as a fan, as well as your perspective of having it all come together and the work you put into it.
Yeah, it was a special week for sure. We were there. It all started with setting up Riderville early. It was Sunday or Monday when we got into it. Had it all ready to go the next couple of days, and then it was just late nights and early mornings getting that ready. Once game time hit, I just found myself just standing there in awe and just enjoying the moments through it. One, because I was extremely tired, but two, it was just, you just could feel something special was about to happen. As the game went on, it just got more and more into it. You just kind of had a feeling, even from the opening player introductions, you just had a feeling when we all came out together that it was just our night. After the game, we finished tearing down the stadium, and we're just hanging out in the green and white lounge. There's just a couple of us left, just didn't want to leave. And Gordie Gilroy came through and invited us to the locker room, and he had the cup set up in there for us. So there was just, for a few moments, there's just a few of us from the sidelines sitting in there with it, which was fun. Then we got O'Day and Tamman and Dressler and McCullough, Rob Begg, all came back from the awards, and just found ourselves sitting there in awe, just listening to the stories of them growing up and playing together in the season. And then we had the idea, we all went out and dug up the Ryder Looney that was at center field. So that was a pretty special moment to be able to be out there with all those guys as well. The funniest part of the night was at the end. It was about almost 6 a.m. and we're leaving the stadium, and McCullough's got the cup, and we call for a taxi, and the taxi pulls up, and he's about an hour late. And he gets out of the cab and yells, "I'm so sorry. There's something about a Grey Cup going on tonight, and it's been too busy to get here on time," which we found quite humorous since McCullough was actually holding the cup at the stadium. But it was just an end point to a really fun night, that's for sure.
Yeah, that sounds pretty awesome. Now that you mentioned the Ryder Looney, I do remember hearing about that. So do you know who has the Looney right now?
Last I saw, just from looking back at pictures actually today when I knew I was coming to talk to you, I think it was Gordie was the last one holding it, but I'm not too sure where it went from there, that's for sure.
Yeah, secret's out now. People will be on the lookout for that. I do have a collection of those Ryder Loonies. Every time I have one, I'd grab it and I'd put it in a box at my house there. So I got like $7 worth of Ryder Loonies, but not letting those go anytime soon. I'll hold on to those. Do you have any Grey Cup predictions for this? It's early in the season. Teams are starting to show their true colors, though. Do you have any Grey Cup predictions?
I would. I really think Toronto is going to turn things back around. They're in a bit of a slide right now, and trying to get themselves. I could see Toronto, Edmonton at the moment. Hamilton, I think, is on a bit of a peak. And they'll come back down to earth, and I really think the Riders will turn it around and get back in the fight. But I think just the way the teams are built, I can really see those two teams battling it out.
So you think Toronto and Edmonton? Kris, thank you so much for the time. Thank you so much for the interview. And thank you so much for all those broken legs you serviced and drove those guys to the sidelines.
Thank you. It was great. You guys have a great podcast, and I can't wait to share this out.
Awesome. Thanks. Let's get back to the podcast.
Okay, there's that interview with Kris Moen. You know, I mentioned earlier about how great it was to talk to him. He seemed to have a good grasp on the knowledge of football, even the stuff we talked about after the interview before we were recording. And he's just a good guy to talk football with. So maybe we'll have him back on the show again.
Awesome.
I wouldn't mind it. And why don't we do something uniquely Canadian football? Mm-hmm. The Rouge. People talk about the Rouge all the time. What's with the single point?
A new segment called the Rouge.
So, yeah, let's do a segment. We'll call it the Rouge. What is the Rouge? It's 1 point.
Mm-hmm.
Bryce, what's 1 point you want to make about the Canadian football this week?
The one rouge I want to make about CFL this week was trying to watch some of those games out east, and I turn them on, and all I hear is whenever the defense is on the field, and I don't know if it's I thought that air horns were maybe they're not allowed in some stadiums, but it kind of makes the games almost unwatchable.
I noticed it during the highlight package. Holy smokes, every play had air horns in it. So, so you're calling for what? A ban on air horns across the league?
Yeah.
Ban the air horn.
Get them out. Get them out of the stadium. We don't need the air horns in there. If you want to bring some shakers or some cowbells, but or one of those vuvuzelas or all that stuff, you could do that. But let's get the air horns out of the stadiums. It's not good football to watch.
I want to point out. You want to go up?
Sure.
I'll go. I don't mind the noise. But yeah, too much air horns makes for a bad experience. Imagine being the guy beside the guy with the air horn.
All right. So my
Mitch,
Rouge. I got one.
What you bringing? You got a Rouge?
I watched the live Mike game, and holy smokes, Trevor Harris won me over as this is a real number one quarterback. The way he commanded his team, he's calling everything out, getting people lined up. And it made me think, is Bridge and Watford, or our Bridge and Watford, do they have that command of the field? And I'm not sure they do, but there's a guy that I think does, and that's Zach Collaros. We need Zach Collaros back. I know we won. I'm not complaining. But Zach Collaros, you got a bye week to get healthy. I want to see him in Hamilton when we come back on the field.
Yes, how good is Ottawa right now for how early
they look
season?
good.
They look like a playoff ready team, and they've only played 4 games, right?
Yeah, no, I like your Rouge. I like Bryce's Rouge. I got a Rouge of my own. The point I want to make, I think, is about the Rouge. And you know what? People complain about the missed field goal gets you a single point. You know, the guy can run it out. If I'm a special teams coach, I'm telling my guy, run out that missed field goal every single time. But of course, I'm an idiot fan. I'm not a coach. So running out the football is obviously more exciting.
It is more
exciting. That's why I'm saying run that football out, man. It's fun. And don't give up that Rouge. But we had a chance to run it out, and we took the knee, gave up the single point there. And I think that we also missed that convert. So those single points in the CFL, that's what's kind of fun about it. Sometimes the low scoring people make fun of it like a baseball score or a hockey score, but it's football, it's CFL style. And, you give up 2 points every now and then. You give up 1 point. You earn 1 point by missing a field goal. Those single points matter. It shows that the red zone matters as well. You get to the red zone, you're at least guaranteed that 1 point if you don't screw up too bad, right? So keep the Rouge. Love the Rouge.
All right, the Rouge. Dylan, each segment needs a good intro or good sound effect. So I need something from you for next week, setting up the Rouge. Can you give me something?
Can I give you something? You want me to give you a sound effect for the Rouge?
I need you to give me the intro, the sound bite. I'm not sure what we call this. That when we're ready to go to this segment, boom, I play this, and we know we're in the Rouge.
I don't know. You're putting me on the spot, and that's a good question. We're going to get something, though. I'll tell you that. We're going to get something.
I think the fans want to hear something.
The fans
right
want
now,
something.
Dylan.
They do.
You want something now? You want like
like a sting for the Rouge.
A sting. You want like a quick intro to the Rouge. That's what you're asking me.
Like a good, sort of like, you're listening to the Rider Outsiders, but this is for the Rouge. This is just for this segment, special to this segment, to give it some pop.
Wow. Okay, let's do it. Let's see what I got here.
All right.
It's time for something uniquely Canadian football, that is, the Rouge. Everybody loves it. Everybody loves the single point. You've got a point. I've got a point. Let's hear the Rouge.
No, that's not it. We'll work on it and try something for next week. All right.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. Thank you.
You hear the slow clapping right now, and that means it's time for the meh of the week. Guys, do you have any candidates?
I'd like to nominate. Yeah, my Rouge intro.
It was good. It was a good first try. I liked it.
Yeah, it was all right.
Meh of the week. Anybody got one on top of their head? Who disappointed you? What let you down?
Well, how about Meh of the week? I'll go with BC Lions. BC Lions defense, 41 points. They just didn't show up. Didn't show up to play. They you see Winnipeg. They're just having their way with them. Really, just kind of pass and catch, scoring touchdowns at will.
Ooh, Winnipeg's a pretty good team, but yeah, I hear you. BC Lions definitely need a spark. Dylan, do you got anything?
You know what? I off the top of my head, because the Meh of the week for me, honestly, it might have to be the Duron Carter hate. Carter hate. It's kind of gone now. I said before, if he's not going to perform, at defense, then what are we doing?
Yeah.
But he did perform, and so the Meh of the week is kind of like anybody who's trying to hate on Duron Carter right now. Maybe that's a little unconventional, but I don't got to always be conventional with that, you know.
I like it. The Meh of the week is those people that called into the the Rider Roundtable, and they were still complaining about Carter playing DB. He had a good game, so complaints and hate on Carter is the Meh of the week.
Oh.
All right. That brings us to predictions for next week. The Riders have a bye, but there's still 3 games in the CFL. Thursday, Calgary at Ottawa. Bryce, who do you like?
Ooh, that is a tough one. And if I gotta choose one, I'm gonna choose Ottawa. They're at home. They're looking good. Calgary might be. They did come off a bye, but they might be a little bit soft. You know, they might come out flat. So I'm going to go with Ottawa.
Dylan?
I'm going to go the other way. Yeah, I'm going to go with Calgary. I think they're going to come in off the road. Ottawa's going to give a good game, but Calgary's just going to be one of those regular season powerhouses like they have been the past few years, and they're going to spoil the Ottawa momentum for now.
I'm going to watch this game because it's going to be an exciting game. Cheer for Ottawa, but I'm going to bet on Calgary. Friday, Toronto at Edmonton. Toronto just won. Edmonton just lost to Toronto. So this is the big rematch. Who do you like?
I'm going to take Edmonton because I think they're going to be hungry to get revenge on Toronto, and they're not going to let it happen again. So I'm taking Edmonton at home.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm going to have to go with the same thing. Edmonton at home for the win.
Yep, I definitely agree. And wrapping up the week, Saturday, Winnipeg at BC. What do we see happening in that game?
Well,
I think Winnipeg's on a roll. Winnipeg's going to take it. Oh, yep.
Yeah, I know that Dylan, like one of your favorite teams, is Winnipeg. So I'm glad you chose Winnipeg, and I think Winnipeg's going to win.
Winnipeg likely wins that one, I think. All right, and this is pretty much bringing us to the end of the show. Anything else from you guys?
You know what? I loved the win. It was a tough game, low scoring, and you predicted it last week, Mitch. You said it's going to be a low scoring game. Yep, it was, and I loved it.
Yeah, well, I'll have to say something that I'm gonna have to eat my hat because I actually took Hamilton to beat Saskatchewan last week, which seemed like an obvious pick, but was I ever proven wrong? So I'm gonna have to put some ketchup, put mustard, put whatever mayonnaise on my hat, and just eat my words because the Riders proved me wrong.
Don't bet against the Riders. That's the show for this week. For Dylan Robson, for Bryce Wiles, I'm Mitch Wiles. This was the Rider Outsiders.